On episode 163 of the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast, we have superstar return guest Heather Younger, and she's going to tell you how you can be a leader who truly cares about their people. That's right, folks. It's all about the heart today. Are you ready for this? All right, let's do it. Welcome one, welcome all to the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast, a weekly podcast series dedicated to helping you hit peak performance across the three domains of leadership. Those being leading yourself, leading your team, and leading your organization. This podcast couples my 20 years of military experience as a senior Canadian Army officer with world-class guests to bring you the most complete podcast of leadership going. And for more, feel free to check out our website at movingforwardleadership.com. And with that, let's get to the show. Hey everybody, it is your Chief Leadership Officer, Scott McCarthy, and thanks for tuning in for yet another great episode of the podcast. This episode has been a long time in the making. If you haven't been following me lately, then you're missing out, because this is, honestly, it's a special episode for me. And I'm going to get with the theme about heart and caring and speak from the heart for a second. I'll tell you that I never expected this episode to ever get recorded. Why? Well, one day, if you've been following the show, first off, following the show for some time, you know the name Heather Younger. She's been on the podcast. I think this is her third or fourth time on the show. She's like literally one of the guests who's been on the show the most since we kicked it off. And one day she shot me a message to let me know that my interview on her podcast has been used in her latest book, The Art of Caring Leadership. And it just blew me away. First off, I was super just excited to be interviewed by Heather on her podcast. But then when she informed me that I was actually going to be in her latest book, I was just floored. Honestly, super humbling experience. And this is what the show is all about. We're talking about the art of caring leadership. She went through an interview series podcast, much like this one, where she interviewed hundreds of people on her show and basically took the notes and wrote this book. Now, if you are new to the show, you're like, Scott, that's great, but I don't know who this Heather Younger person is. She is a highly experienced keynote speaker. This is her second book. She's also the CEO of and founder of Employee Fanatix, which is basically an employee engagement and leadership development consulting firm, where she's basically on the mission to help leaders understand the power they possess to ensure people feel valued at work. And if you go into one of the previous episodes, you're going to find the backstory about how Heather got fired, and then she basically just went on this whole mission of making sure employees feel valued at work, because it certainly did not happen for her. In this episode, we go through a whole range of topics, such as what it means to be a caring leader, different aspects of caring leadership, how leaders employ caring leadership in their daily activities, and what you can do to start being a caring leader. We talk obviously a lot about the book, the different resources that she actually has built into it. She has a lot built into it, so I won't take away all the thunder right now. But I must say, it's probably the most comprehensive package that I've ever heard for a single piece of work. Truly impressive, Heather. Well done to you. This has just been an absolute honor. So without further ado, I'm just going to let this dive in. You are going to hear not an interview today, but rather two friends having a great conversation, because that's exactly what this is. And I could say, thanks to this show, I am friends with Heather Younger, two-time author, outstanding leader, outstanding example, mentor, and just a great person. So well done, Heather. Proud of you and everything you've accomplished. Now for the listener, why don't you sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Heather Younger on the art of caring leadership. Heather Younger, welcome back. Third time, three-peater of a guest to the Moving Forward Leadership podcast. So great to have you back.
Oh, so excited to be back. It's like being home with like a warm cup of joe in front of a fireplace, being with you, Scott. So
I was just saying before I hit record, your first appearance on the show was episode 24, and this is 163.
That's
like it's 139 episodes ago, 139 weeks of content ago. Actually, even more than that, because I took a break for our son and all this, right? So so it's it's years.
I really, oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
You're an OG guest of the show.
OG, I love it. Love it.
So you're on 24. You came back for 50, and now you are back for 163 with the book ready to be released yesterday at the time of the launch for this show. And I'm so proud of you for launching that thing. Well done to you.
Thank you so much. It's interesting. This process has been so different from the first book. Remember, the 7 Intuitive Laws of Employee Loyalty was self-published, and I had to kind of gather the team around, and I had to figure out what I was doing. And we did our very best. We did our very best. And I feel, just more confident because now this time it was a publisher, and our values are aligned. They're a B corporation. And so their values are really aligned, related to kind of impact in the world, and making sure that the authors they work with want to have that impact, and that the subjects that they have are going to have that impact. And so one of my hope is that I have more global impact, because I think I've had some good impact in certain pockets, obviously US and then Canada, but I really haven't gotten to be really, I think, impactful in other countries. So my goal is that it goes a little bit more global. And at the same time, really just, I really wanted to get to the people who need this stuff, because I don't want it to be in a, what is it called? Not a silo. That's not the word for it. But when you're just talking to yourself or talking to all people that are just like you.
Yeah. Just echo chamber.
Yeah. Echo chamber. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you get my age. You start to forget stuff. But anyway, just, don't want to be an echo chamber. Want to be making sure the message is get to the people who actually can touch the lives of employees in a more positive way. So that's my hope.
That's been your mission since, 139 episodes ago, at least, is getting to the employers to help employees and really, inspire leaders to do better for their people. And I'd love to know what the inspiration behind this specific book was for you to say, okay, let's go, let's dive in, reaching out to the publisher, getting that done. What was the inspiration, the motivation behind, more so what you just talked about, but behind doing this book?
Well, it really spins off from the first. So the first you wrote is the 7 Intuitive Laws of Employee Loyalty. The first chapter, or the first chapter of that, was giving them great supportive managers. And this next book is called The Art of Caring Leadership. So what it does is it attempts to really dig deep into that first concept of the supportive leader. And so the whole context of it is that I've interviewed on my podcast, that I'm at 160 at this point on my podcast, Leadership with Heart. And I interviewed these people, and I boiled up the concepts into these key areas, and then the key behaviors. And then I decided to use about 80 of the voices from those interviews inside the book. And yours is, of course, one of the voices that shows up in there, which is kind of exciting. Yay. Woo-hoo! You're going to be in my book.
That's so amazing.
It's so
it
cool.
blows my mind still today.
It's yay.
When I mentioned that.
So cool. So anyway, so I have their voices there. And the reason why I wanted to, there's two reasons. This is an interesting kind of a side offshoot, but So I wanted to include everybody's voices because I felt like, oh my gosh, there was so much brilliance. Like I'm listening, I'm just like, oh my gosh, a lot of people don't listen to podcasts. So I need to put this in another medium that people, maybe someone else will, like another group of people will at least read a book, and then I'll do articles, and then someone else will read articles, but not the book and not the podcast. So how do I continue to socialize the message, but doing it different ways so I can get to more people? So that was one thing. But the other thing is, there's this thing inside of me. I think a lot of us have this. It's not really like an imposter, but there is a little bit of that going on. It's like you're not good enough. So there is a little bit of that imposter thing going on. So for me, as my foundation of my whole personal story of adversity, it created in me this thing of like, maybe like me by myself is not enough. And so I need to have more voices to make it enough. And then I keep getting almost slapped in the face. Not really, but kind of like, Heather, no, people want to hear from you. And I'm like, what? No. So here's an example. The reviewers, there were 3 reviewers from the publisher that they reviewed the book. They were outside reviewers. And all three of them said at some point, could you please provide more of your own stories and experiences? Because every time you do that, I lean in as I'm reading. So I didn't have enough of me in there that first round. I had, again, everybody else, and I didn't summarize it very well, and I didn't have enough of my voice around it. And they're like, this is your book, and we actually like your voice. So can you use it? And it's just funny because my whole thing, employee Fanatix, we help organizations listen more effectively by capturing the voices of their people. So I think their voices are so important and so valuable, but what about my own? And I think that's what happens with a lot of us, right?
No, for sure. It's totally easy. Even for me here, it's like I haven't done a full episode. I don't know for how long because I bring all these guests on. But I use my voice for my Monday Leadership Minute segment where it's 5 minutes ish, but I'm really like just sniper round straight down the range on a very, very specific topic, right? Like boom, bullseye, one shot, one round down the range, one target down on that particular topic. So that's where I feel like I put my voice out. But the imposter syndrome thing is super true. Like even for any leader, any author, any speaker out there, it's actually the episode literally right before this one is all about overcoming imposter syndrome. So great.
Nice.
So if you haven't listened to that one, folks, you might want to double back after this one. But I really want to hear some of the great lessons that came out of all these interviews that you did that ended up in the book, and what were some of the common themes that kind of came out of it?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So it's the art of caring leadership. And the attempt here is to define what caring looks like, because many managers, or as I call them, leaders, managers for me, I use them interchangeably, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Many managers think of themselves as caring, but are they really? And it is the employee that is the end user of that concept, right? They are the end user. They decide the user experience when it comes to caring. So I wanted to be able to put down on paper what caring looks like from a day-to-day basis and what it would make their employee feel like when they actually, from the user experience side of things. So I define it it's 9 behaviors with sub-behaviors and stories to back it up. And that's makes it so that it's not this nebulous thing that's out there in the world, but there are some clear guardrails. So here are a few of those. I won't go through all 9 of those. A few showed up in the first book, but again, there's drill down. So obviously this idea of creating a listening culture, and the listening culture is at the individual leader level, and the listening culture is at the organizational level. So you listen organizationally and you listen as a manager of people and a manager of teams. And so that is a critical one, and it will show up probably in every single thing I do. It is my North Star. So creating a listening culture is critical. The other one is making them feel important. Often what happens is employees feel like a number, like they just are there to do a job and that no one really cares for them, right? No one really thinks anything big of them. And so when we do that, we do it by recognizing and appreciating them. We do it by connecting with them one-on-one, really spending that time with them, and also going our way to be even spontaneously make sure we're available for them when they need us. And I know you do this because you talked about it in some of the stories we talked about. The other thing is providing feedback. That's part of the listening on the listening side is providing feedback too and making them feel important, because it's not just like you listening one way, but it's bi-directional communication. It's listening and then providing feedback, even if it hurts a tiny bit, right? And we talked about that, and you show up in that area because we talked about the after action review. And those are the kind of things that you need to do that in order to grow people and to create safe spaces for people. So creating safe spaces, helping them grow, really looking for the greatness and finding that seed and digging deep. Those are some of the themes that really pop up in the book. There's a lot there. I'm going to be honest, which is why, again, one of the reviewers kind of slapped me in my head on this one. So I already knew I was going to create courses from the book. It made a lot of sense for those who, and I already knew I was going to do an assessment. So courses and assessment. But what I didn't really think about, which was really brilliant on his part and so true, is that I create this environment, this community that's for caring leaders in development. And they will go there, interact with other caring leaders in development. They'll have access to coaches because it's a self-assessment. So how many of us really know how much we truthfully care? So depending on where the numbers fall, no matter what, how I hired an IO psychologist to actually make sure the assessment is like pretty ironclad. He did all of his research and made sure it was good. So when they go in, not everybody, including me, is going to get a 10, right? We're going to have areas that we all need to improve on. But most of us may stop there. We'll know about it. We'll stop there. But I'm going to go further in the community and offer kind of a coaches cohort that'll be there, caring leadership certified coaches that'll be there ready to help them work through the assessment like you would a 360 or any other assessment you may need in the workplace. So they're going to have anybody who reads the book and enters that phase of accountability and support and takes the assessment and enters the community, it's going to have it's just going to be like, wow, like completely wowed by the level of support, guidance, and kind of community and connectedness that they're going to have, which makes sense, right? I'm talking about connection here. And this is what this is me. I can't be weird to stop right there. So I kind of slapped myself that I didn't do it the first time around, but the second time this is going to be kind of a revolution and evolution, I think, for hopefully leaders everywhere.
I love it. I really love the assessment part because we don't know what we don't know. And leaders, we're not prone to blind spots, right? In fact, I feel more and more as I get deeper and deeper into it is like, wow, I don't know squat. Like it's so true. I am into I'd say about 130 interviews now, and it's like I don't know jack. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know jack. And it's funny because that goes right back to my very last day at RMC at the Royal Military College of Canada. And as I was turning in some equipment that stays there, I remember one of the senior NCOs, and his last words stuck with me. And he's like, "Remember now, sirs and ma'ams, you don't know squat." He used a different word, but anyway, we'll keep this PG. He's like, "You don't know squat." And I kind of took that and ran with it. And every job I show up to is like, "All right, I don't know anything here. Let's figure this out." But that's even coming true now at like 163 episodes later. And it's like, wow, I don't know anything. So that back to the initial part of what we were just discussing is the assessment piece is crucial so that we do identify our blind spots. Like I'm hooked on those little assessments online. Like I know they're all lead maggots to get my email address. And guess what? They all got them because I'm just like, let me know. And it's like, fine, market me. I don't care because if it's good, I want your service, right? If I realize if it's a huge blind spot for me, I want the service to get beyond. And that's really where leaders, not bosses, but leaders go. They like, let me figure out, oh, this is a blind spot for me. I am failing. Oh, there's a service here to get me from the F to a P range. Let's go.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think what I plan to do is like kill them with support. I mean, so they're going to have a lot of support. And my goal is to really create a thriving community. And so while obviously, yes, I'm growing a business. Yes, I'd like to have book sales. Yay, great. You don't make money on book sales. It's not really even about, right? It's the impact. I've always been in it for the employees. So for me, I get to the employees by changing the hearts and minds of the leaders. So I get to the front line and the midline of the people who feel devalued and like they don't matter. I get to them by touching the leader. And so that's it. That is kaput. Like if you needed to find the star for me, that would be the star. And that would be where I start and stop. And everything starts and stops with leadership. And you and I know I'm preaching to the choir on this. But none of us are perfect. I mean, I was just talking to someone I was on another podcast today and I said, listen, we were asking about vulnerability. And I said, well, you have to be selective when we're vulnerable. And they said, oh, well, how do you do that? And I was telling them, but I said, but listen, this is kind of where I score as like a C- as a leader, because I'm not selectively vulnerable. What I mean by that is I'm not vulnerable with everybody in the organization, but when it comes to my team, I'm more vulnerable than I should be. So I know that about myself. It's a weak spot for me. And I know that would pop up, when I go in and take the final assessment, because we just did the test of it. But once we get in the system and I go take it, I can tell you right now, like, communicating or whatever, it's going to be oversharing is an issue for me. So it'll be a low mark. And I'll be like, I need to get a coach in my own community.
Oh, I love your drive and passion. It's contagious is what it is. But I like that part of, you're after those middle level, employees and all the employees, but you're going to affect them by touching their leaders. And that is being a leader of leaders. And that is really what, we aspire to be, right? And that's where leaders should aspire to be. When I get a job and I'm, back to my squadron command days when I was commanding a squadron of 200, I was touching my 195 people by touching the five direct subordinates right underneath me and building them up and getting their leadership skills up so they can turn around and do it to their directs and all the way down to the chain. So that is, that's what it's
and
all
how do we
about.
get the book? People are like, well, what if I know my manager needed, but he would never buy it or she would never buy it. And I'm trying to give ideas, to them, where you can wrap it up as a gift, or you could make it like you could recommend it as a book, like doing a book club or, a study group at work with everybody on a team. How do we get the book in the hands of the jerks, in the hands of either the people know that they don't care and they could give a care, or they think they care. And like I said, the proof is in the pudding. How do we get it into those hands and where they can take it to heart and where they will plunge into the community? Because there'll be a percentage of people who read the book who will be like, this is squishy, touchy. To a certain extent, not all of it, because we got stuff like your stuff in there, right? That gives it some meat, so I have quite a bit of meat from all the stories, from all the people. There's a lot of meat. There's a lot of stuff to really go. I mean, you could go so much further and probably make it like a 700-page book, right? But it is what it is. It's more of a business book. But, really just figuring that out. But there will be a certain percentage of people who will just stop at the book. They'll be done. And I even say, okay, you're at the end now. You could either choose to stop, or you could enter into the accountability system I put in place for you. What would you like to do? And okay, boom, 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 boom. And everything's laid out for them. So my hope is that a lot of people will do that, but maybe not everybody will. And, I will have touched who I will touch. If I will touch one leader who touched 10 employees, I will be one happy mamacita.
The top is the loneliest place. Colin Powell said that once. But it doesn't have to be. Instead, you can find people to talk to, people to run ideas by, people to help you figure out solutions to the problems that you're facing right now as a leader. And see, I felt alone once, and I decided to start the podcast. And with the podcast, I decided that I needed to help people like you more. So that's why I started the Pivot for Leadership Facebook group. Leadership skills for managers to be leaders, not bosses. You can find it at movingforwardleadership.com/group. And come join us. It's completely free for you to join us and talk leadership with us day in, day out. So check us out again at movingforwardleadership.com/group. Now back to the show. Love it. Absolutely love it. So let's roll with this. So I read the book, which I will one day when I get my hands on a copy, and I'll be going through it, and especially looking for my part, which still blows my mind. So I get to the end, and then okay, I dive in like, all right, let's go, let's go full in. What's really waiting for me to develop my caring leadership skills?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So we, at the very end of the book, there's a link to an invitation that says, like, your journey to caring leadership doesn't stop at the end of this book. And here you go. And once you enter into this, here's what's lined up. You enter into, you go and you take the assessments. You go to that link, and that just opens up your life in a whole nother way, right? Because now you go there, you take the assessment. From there, you're invited into the community. You also are recommended a set of courses. I will be teaching all of the courses founded on the book, but that Caring Leadership Academy will grow over time, and there'll be a lot more coaches that will be able to basically teach courses there. So it'll be me to start, and then as over time, other coaches will be doing other things, and there's going to be masterminds, and there's going to be a lot of stuff. And so the coaches aren't free that are inside the community, but they are going to be trained to be able to work with you in the assessment. And then you work with someone, and you choose how long you work with someone. And if you decide that there's value in working with one, maybe you decide you want to bring it into your organization and you want to work with a group of our coaches, you want to work with whatever. There's lots of different opportunities, but there will be a full support system ready and waiting for them as they decide to enter into that journey. So it's a journey.
And that's what leadership is. It's a journey. There is no stop, no exit. It keeps going day in, day out. Every day.
We're going to ramp it up in Heather style. We're going to gather feedback over time of the members of the community. My goal would be to release an employee assessment, so that once you've had an opportunity to work with a coach, now we get to go in and assess employees. So we'll do that if the community wants that. I mean, there'll be a lot of different opportunities to continue to drill down, because it is, in the work that I do, it is like this, like it's like a needle in a haystack type of thing. And so that you hear all the voices, then you aggregate the most important kind of themes, then you drill down some more with employees and focus groups and culture teams, then you get some more themes that are tactics, and you go and do the action, then you come back and you listen again, and you repeat the cycle over and over until you continually impact it in a positive way. I always tell people, I know when I say it, I even exhaust myself when I talk about the cycle of listening. But that's kind of what happens. So this community will be one where we will listen to those who enter the community. We will listen to people, ask for feedback, we'll listen to feedback. One of the things I'm very good at is I leverage the greatness of everybody, which is what I did in this book. So I like to do the same thing in the community, where I'll just bring people in where I'm like, that's not my strength. And I'll just bring other people in to do the thing they do to add value to the community. So that'll be how it goes. I'm very excited about it. It is a work in progress. It is a work in progress.
Yeah, you kind of just described my favorite leadership word, which is delegation. So you bring in people, right? You bring in people that offset your weaknesses with their strengths, and that is definitely it's key and crucial to ensure that you got a successful program, but most importantly that you have a program that enables people to develop, once they've identified their blind spots, to get through them and develop those weaknesses into strengths, or at least into, getting out of the F scores and into the P range, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I actually prefer the word empowerment. I mean, I wouldn't say I never use delegate, because delegation, I think there's a need for that too. I like to focus, and on the book, I talk about empowering people to make their own decisions. And in the empowerment space, it's a little different than saying, I need you to stand in my stead to go do this thing. This empowerment, taking it to another level, it's stand in my stead to do this thing, but do it use your best judgment to do it the way you need to, with the most creativity you need in order to innovate, in order to accomplish a goal, in order to grow, right? So it's a more broad view of authority. So I'm giving them more authority to think outside of my shoes and stand in theirs with all of their gifts, right? So that shows up in the book too. And it's a whole chapter on empowering people to make their own decisions. So.
No, I think it's mostly, I have it basically exact same, viewpoint of it. It's just my army-ness coming out.
Yeah, I know it. We all, again, I think there's value to all sides, and it's interesting when you do the book, you know, how much do you protect the words you use versus how much do you want to socialize them and be used across the board? And, you know, even like with the publisher, they're like, yeah, no, we don't want to like trademark that word or trademark that phrase or trademark that thing or da-da-da. And I'm like, and then I talk to my attorneys and they're like, no, we want this, this, and that, and this protected and this, you know, and I'm like, I get it. Like, I do get it. Cause I'm the lawyer, you know, I'm a lawyer and that's what I'm trained at. So I try to run away from it, but it keeps creeping back inside me. But you know, in any sense, it's just that wanting people to be thinking about caring in a different way, wanting to understand what it is, that it's not this soft, squishy thing that doesn't do anything for you or your organization, but it actually, in fact, is super duper hard and it produces some serious results, right?
Awesome. Heather, we're going to wind down here, but I want to ask you something. So shoot me one thing which the audience, when they grab their copy, because I'm sure they're all going to grab their copy, that's going to surprise them. And then one thing which they can take immediate action on today after they're done listening to this episode.
So, well, the one thing they can do right now, if they haven't grabbed the copy, I'd say grab the copy. And then I would say, after you grab the copy, take the assessment. Okay. So that would be like the steps, right? And I think the one thing that they'll probably be surprised at is a couple of how I infuse my personal stories. And there's stories that might be a little hard to take. But I think they're going to be surprised to hear the level of energy and positivity and passion in my voice when they read the stories that kind of formed me as a person.
Oh, it's awesome. Love it. All right. 2 last questions. One, which both you've answered before. So we're going to review notes back 139 episodes ago. And that is, according to you, Heather Younger, what makes a great leader?
Wow. Well, you know what? Let me just put it this way simply, and then you'll know where to go for the details. I think a great leader is one who shows concern and kindness to those they lead. And that is the definition of caring leadership.
You probably like did that word for word. You probably went and reviewed that episode to see what you said back then, right?
No, I'm not sure I did, because now the book is different. I didn't even know I was doing the book back then. But, yeah.
All right. Final thing. How can people find you? How can they follow you? Where can they grab a copy? It's all about you now.
You know, yeah. If you just search The Art of Caring Leadership or Heather Younger books or something on Google, you would find it's going to pop up anywhere. So obviously Amazon, all of those things. And then if you're looking to follow me, I'm on all the major social platforms now. I'm the most busy on LinkedIn, and you know that's kind of the way it's always been. You know that of me. I have 2 websites. It's heatheryounger.com. It's kind of the speaking, podcast, personal stuff, the personal leadership stuff. And then there's employeefanatix.com, Fanatix. And that is the consulting, training, more organizational relationship organization.
Awesome. I was going to say, this feels like it was catching up with an old friend, but guess what? It is catching up with an old friend having you on here. It's been fantastic.
So awesome.
And it is one of the reasons why I love doing this gig, because I get to meet fantastic people like yourself and see you do so many great things out there and follow you along in your journey and help support you, like bring you back on the show to talk about it.
I love it. Yes. Thank you for having me too, Scott. It means a lot. And I'm excited to have to be able to amplify your voices and many other voices that are just, have a level of brilliance, not in the perfection in all cases, but in either in the humility and in the maybe lack of perfection, the imperfection. There's so much brilliance. And so I was happy to be able to highlight all of those things to bring us to the end where we realize that it is a journey, that we're not in it alone. And just keep listening into, Scott's podcast. There's lots of other podcasts, reading books to continue to grow yourself.
Can we finish it off on a better note than that? Heather, again, thanks for coming out. You're a superstar.
Thank you, dear. I appreciate it.
And that's a wrap for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the Peak Performance Leadership Podcast. But you know what you could do to truly support the podcast? And no, that's not leaving a rating and review. It's simply helping a friend. and that is helping a friend by sharing this episode with them if you think this would resonate with them and help them elevate their performance level, whether that's within themselves, their teams, or their organization. So do that, help me, help a friend, win-win all around, and hey, you look like a great friend at the same time. So just hit that little share button on your app, and then feel free to fire this episode to anyone that you feel would benefit from it. Finally, there's always more. There's always more lessons around being the highest performing leader that you can possibly be, whether that's for yourself, your team, or your organization. So why don't you subscribe? Subscribe to the show via movingforwardleadership.com/subscribe. And until next time, lead, don't boss, and thanks for coming out. Take care now.